Okay, welcome back. It's nice to see everyone. As Sue quite correctly said on the group, although she got very little credit for it, it's a bit of a shame. We've been going for almost over a year.
Mm.
I actually thought it was longer.
No, I don't know what made me look, but
I
I
didn't
did.
realise
I
it was
I was
only
thinking.
a
I'm
year.
sure we started before Pesach last year,
I didn't
but I
realise it
wasn't
was
quite
only a
sure,
year.
so I just whizzed back in the group.
Wow, we've made quite a lot of progress then if it's only been a year. I
Yeah.
really didn't realise. I thought some of those topics took quite a while. We had a break in the summer.
Hmm.
Um, And still, very good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. As we look, I'm gonna confirm. Let's have a look. When was the group created? Oh, how did I find that out?
On the group info.
Oh yes, 5th of the 3rd, 2025.
Yes.
Heavens above. And there you are. In fact, I think if we look at the group icon, I think it says starting. Oh, I can't really see. Can anyone see? It's a bit fuzzy for me.
Wednesday, starting Wednesday, the 5th of March. Although I think that's when the group started. I'm not sure whether that was I thought the 12th was the first session, but
No, I don't
could
know.
be wrong.
We have to. There has to be an inquiry.
Yeah.
You're never wrong, darling. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
apparently.
But we still haven't organised a face-to-face get-together and celebration or anything.
No,
So,
yes, we should. Please God, we actually should. Okay,
yeah.
right.
Anyway.
On that note, um, on that note, let me share the screen. We're actually right over here.
Oh,
Okay. Yesterday, excuse me. Last week we started learning about Shabbos, if you remember.
Yeah.
And we talked about perspective, and we talked about our extra soul or extra exposure to our existing soul. We talked about, the soul needs Shabbos of the 6 days of activity, and the fact there's a certain amount of spiritual restoration, right, that occurs on Shabbos. Spiritual restoration. There's natural wear and tear over time, to quote your phrase, Sue and Henry, natural wear and tear over the 6 days of the week, and the Shabbos is supposed to bring us back. I'm not sure who told me this anecdote. Maybe it was someone in the group. There was a certain shul with a certain rabbi, not in our country, who, after the rabbi was there for many years, and the kind of community more or less remained the same. And the community thought the rabbi was slightly dispirited. The rabbi wanted to see growth, individual growth, communal growth, etc. So it's a shul actually in America. Anyway, so one that went over to the rabbi and said, "Look, you probably feel that you're getting nowhere here," which is quite a brave thing to say to the rabbi. You're getting nowhere here, right? Because every week you say, on Shabbos you talk about various things, and then we all go to our jobs and we're exactly the same, and we're exactly the same next Shabbos, and etc. And you probably feel that you've made no impact whatsoever. Right. So the rabbi said, "Yeah, funny you should think that. I was thinking so." And he said, "No, no, no." He says, "You should know." So he said to the rabbi, "You should know." He says, "If not for your inspiration on Shabbos, we would sink much lower." In other words, just to bring us back to an even keel. He says, "Yeah, we're so busy in the week. We're in the city. There's all sorts of influences and whatever, around us. Just to bring us back to an even keel, is an amazing thing. And that's what you do on Shabbos, Rabbi."
mm.
Yeah, nice. In other words, Shabbos has a certain amount of spiritual restoration. It's interesting, Gideon, you probably think about these kind of things. There are quite a few, I would call them restoration zones, right? I think they're talking about restoring Parliament at the moment. Yeah, everything seems to be
Oh,
very, very political and very subject to tight budgets, unless you're talking about the MPs themselves. So I think they had a salary rise recently, which surprisingly was unanimously agreed or something like that. I'm not sure
yeah.
exactly the figures. Right, and now they're talking about restoring the building of Parliament. Am I correct?
Hmm.
Yeah, that it's costing billions and millions and whatever it is over a certain
Mm.
number of years. And they're not sure exactly what to do. And anyway, whatever. It's interesting because Seed said we would gladly host them. And they apparently felt otherwise. I don't know why. Maybe because they couldn't use the premises on Wednesday night. Maybe that's the issue, presumably. I said it's fine. Bazak hardly remembers. But be that as it may, there's certain when you restore a building or you bring it back to where it should be, there's certain places you can't enter and certain restoration zones, and some you can. And sometimes they purposefully, in building and reconstructing, try and make it that it's the entire building isn't off limits. right? Kind of what they do. Anyway, now, what is the restoration zone? What are the restoration zones that we have? That's quite a few, which is interesting, right? Now, the Beis Hamikdash is a bit of a restoration zone, meaning you go in and you're supposed to be restored to your spiritual supernal self to a degree, right? Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, maybe together, are a restoration zone in time, right? I think we'll agree. Shabbat and everything of that ilk. And then you've got Shabbos as well. Shabbos is supposed to be a bit of a zone which also restores. Now, again, each one will have its different flavor, and you've got your what we would call a mini car wash, which is Shabbos, and your super car wash, which is Yom Kippur, right, etc. And Shabbos isn't about tshuva per se; it's just about slight, I would call it trajectory modification. But nevertheless, Shabbos is one of that restoration zones. Yeah. So, okay, let's look at this next little bit, which is as follows. So Rav Dessler says we're brought into a different realm on Shabbos. It's a beautiful piece. I feel like I'm not going to do it full justice if I just do it in English, but I've got my customary way of introducing this piece. And stop me if I've done this before in this forum, which is as follows. There were three, maybe two, social psychologists who did the following study with waiters. Gideon, have I told you this one before? No, you don't remember? Don't know the waiter study? Okay, so you know that some of these posh restaurants, before the days of iPads and before the days where you had to put your orders on an iPad, there was something called a real waiter. Used to take your order without an iPad. Anyone remember such days?
Yeah, pencil and paper.
Oh, the days of the pencil.
The better ones didn't write it down; they just got it all right.
Yeah,
so
there weren't many of them around.
So those are the ones in the study, yeah. So that's what they decided to do a study about. I'll get to that in a second, right? So you had these waiters and waitresses who were particularly talented, or at least had a technique, and used to memorize the entire order. Right, we actually, as a group of, and we were at 19, a group of boys who were in yeshiva in Israel, and we had a bit of a school, reunion situation. So we all went out one Motzei Shabbos to a restaurant, about 20 something of us who made it, and we decided to order. And it was one of these people who clearly was not armed with a pen and paper, right? Someone who can memorize it. So you get 20 or so 19-year-old boys with a waitress who's there to remember everyone's order. So we decided we were going to order to a beat. In other words, we basically we took the whole table and basically ordered to a beat. I can't remember if she got it right, but the experience was great. Anyway, regardless. Okay, so here was the study. How long could the waiter or waitress remember their order after the food had been served? Minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. How long?
Minutes.
Minutes?
Minutes.
Sorry, I got the question wrong. Let's start again. I got the question wrong. How long could the waiter or waitress remember the order for? Forget any actions. Right?
Long enough to put the order into the kitchen and bring it out and put it on the table.
8 o'clock, the order had been taken. Right? How long could they retain the information for? Minutes, hours, days, weeks, years. What do we think? Average order.
Well, probably minutes, because they then got to go to another table and take theirs.
Okay, maybe they can remember them all.
Maybe they can. Good luck. I wouldn't.
I wouldn't remember one order. I don't remember what I ate yesterday.
But that's another problem. But they only need to remember it for a few minutes to give it to the kitchen, because then it's their problem to fulfill the order. I may ping a bell, I'll shout to the waitress, your table 6 is ready. They pick it up, take it out of the table and go, this, and this. And people go, that was mine.
Yeah.
I think they could remember it longer, because I think the good ones not only remember your order, but they're like the table order, but they remember who ordered what and they give it directly.
Okay.
And not only once, there are certainly people who remember. My barber remembers my haircut. Do you know what I mean? Meaning they know what numbers and what things. They just go. Do you know what I mean? No.
Yeah. Well, my barber remembers mine.
I don't even have a barber.
Exactly. And you leave the thingy set on the same number every time, and you just
Yeah. Probably like you. I'm my own barber.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how long? Come on then. What do we think?
I'm going to go half an hour.
Half an hour. Okay. Sue and Henry, you're allowed to have two different
Oh.
opinions. As long as Henry asks your permission, of course.
Don't you start.
No,
Sir.
I'd have said just a few minutes, but when they have to take the next 2 or 3 orders, it's
Okay, so you've gone for time and action combination. Jeremy?
I was thinking minutes too.
Minutes, okay. So I'll tell you what they found. And I've actually forgotten who conducted the study. Oh, what's so funny?
No, nothing, sir.
you're not a good waiter then.
No,
It's
I'm
a
not
study about memory, and you've forgotten who conducted the study. I
Yeah.
think that's what's funny.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I'll tell you. Was it Madeleine Gilovich?
If you said it with more confidence, we would believe you without having to Google it.
No, it was a Jewish sounding name. That's the thing. By the way, you can have a look. Okay, so I'll tell you what happened. Ready?
Yes.
All right. I've built up the suspense. They remember the order, yeah, until the point that they put it on the customer's table.
Yeah, that's what I
From
said.
then on, when they turned around, they couldn't remember whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why is that?
Because the purpose has been fulfilled.
Go on. I want you to know, meaning say it the way I want you to say it. I'm joking. Can't say it.
Mind reading now as well.
No, Bimmel, you're right. Purpose being fulfilled, and therefore, why should that mean that you can't remember it anymore afterwards?
Because there's no point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's of no
Information is
interest.
no longer relevant. Information is no longer relevant. Right, good. Information is no longer right. We will. There's a bunch of your brain is looking at things and remembering things the whole time, right? Or feeding things into your brain the whole time. But you remember things which are relevant. Right?
Yeah.
You might, over the course of a wedding or a simcha or a function or whatever, have 64 different conversations, of which 2.5 may stick in your mind.
As many as that.
Pardon?
As many as that.
Depends when they
We
put
couldn't
the food
possibly
down.
remember everything we see and hear every day. There's just so much going on.
Yes.
So our brains have to filter.
Yeah,
and as I said, we filter by relevance or importance or urgency or whatever else is going on, as well as our natural inclinations with whoever is speaking.
100%. Okay, so Rav Dessler basically, he doesn't quote the per se, but he says an amazing thing. He says like this. He quotes a Rashi. He says like this: when Shabbos comes along, it should be in your eyes, kilu kol melachcha asiyah, as if all your work is done. That's what Rashi says. You enter Shabbos as if all your work is done. Ask Rav Dessler, I don't understand. Kol melachcha asiyah, what, you're supposed to act as if all your work is finished? This is impossible. If you've got an assignment, project, whatever for work, you're going to have to finish it or complete it after Shabbos or whatever. Right? How can you fool yourself? How can you delude yourself into thinking, well, it's as if everything's done? It's not done. It's not done. Right? So I don't understand. How can we say we're going to Shabbos? Imagine if it's all done. We don't really believe in delusion. Right? So what's going on? So he says an amazing thing. He says, a person is required, or this is what we want a person, this is what we demand of a person. His connection or her connection to Shabbos should be so great that even if on Friday you're in the middle of something really big, right, and matrid mode, and you're very involved in it, when Shabbos comes in, you aren't even thinking about it anymore. Why? Says because everything pales into insignificance in comparison to Shabbos. Here's the line: all your weekday activities are means to get to an end. Yeah, you're earning money to support a family. You're doing this, you're I don't know, going on a run or going to the gym in order to, make sure your body's okay, right? But those are only means. Shabbos is the inner core, spiritual inner core of the creation itself. In other words, in our parlance, it's not that we say delude yourself and pretend that project no longer exists. It's that project is no longer relevant. It doesn't need to occupy space in your mind anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? Makes sense? Yeah. It's an amazing piece. Yeah. And therefore he says that Shabbos, two more things, right? And therefore, Shabbos should put us into a different mindset. Now, what is that? So there are a few things here. Firstly, the Sefer HaChinuch says, and it's kind of the first place to go, is that Shabbos should provide us with this mindset that Hashem created the world. Right? And as we stop working, we hold back, we take a step back and we say, look, foundation of our faith is Hashem created the world. Right? The Kuzari puts it a little bit more. He says that acknowledging Shabbos or observing Shabbos is acknowledging Hashem's existence in action. Right? In other words, what you've done is you've mimicked effectively the fact that Hashem rested, and therefore by extension admitted that Hashem creates the world and effectively runs the world as well. The Orach Chaim adds, interesting, he says that Shabbos is the core of the entire week. Right? In fact, he says the way it used to work is that you've got your 6 days. You've got Shabbos, and that gives energy to the 6 days that follow it. So much so, in fact, the way he says it is that the world was only made to last for 6 days. Then Shabbos came along and gave enough energy such that the world could last for another 6 days. So Shabbos is about revitalization. So that's why a baby has his bris, baby boy, on the 8th day, because it means he has to live through a Shabbos before his bris, right? To get that spiritual energy. One last thing over here, and then I've got a nice story for you to end. It's a really good one. Gideon, like this. And it's one you haven't heard because it happened to me last Monday. So he talks about Shabbos. Revolver, amazing person, Revolver. Revolver, who died only about 20 years ago or so, who saved people during the war and cared for them and then married a few of them off to each other. He was in Sweden at the time because he was kicked out. He talks about the power of Shabbos. He says Shabbos is different to all other mitzvahs. As we've learned about before, Shabbos is a gift. It says Shabbos is the innermost chamber of Hashem's treasure houses, an essence of holiness and spiritual focus that doesn't normally exist in our physical world. Yeah? And it's quite important because you could tap into Shabbos and correctly so on many levels. It's funny, I was actually just writing something before, which was a checklist of like progress, that people could think about. And one of them was Shabbos. And it's funny, you get on different levels. For some people, their next step in terms of Shabbos is, okay, put your phones away Friday night. For others, it's make the Shabbos tables more engaging Jewishly. For others, it's see if you can keep a whole Shabbos. There's so many levels within this because it's an entrance into a totally different world, right? He says that Rashi says Shabbos is equal to all mitzvahs. The Simcha Zilsel says it refers to every moment of Shabbos.
Isn't that the same with a number of other mitzvahs? I mean,
yeah, there are some, but they all mean different aspects. So, for example, tzitzis is supposed to be corresponding to all other mitzvahs because it reminds you of all other mitzvahs.
No, I meant in terms of a gateway more than that. So, for example, kashrut, someone might start with vegetarian food. So it's like
that can be that's true as well. Yeah, you can have various levels within other mitzvahs. 100%. You're right. That's true as well. Yeah, totally true. Okay, so Shabbos is supposed to create this. Hashem runs everything. Hashem is in charge of everything. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. So I've got a bit of a story. You ready? It's nothing to do with Shabbos. Nothing to do with Shabbos, but it's a story about Hashem being in charge of everything. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you how it goes. Right. So on Monday, I don't know how many details I should give about this story. On Monday, I had I had arranged a fundraising meeting in town. Ooh, I hear you say. Yeah. Okay. So I don't go into town much, basically at all. So I arranged
this. Very sensible.
But I arranged this fundraising meeting in town, and I planned it. When I say that, I looked up Google Maps to find out how I was getting there. And Rabbi Herman was going, and Rabbi Grunfeld came down from Manchester to come. It was a real important meeting. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I realized something was wrong because on the Sunday when I davened for things to go well, nothing was really working. I kept slipping up on different words. The Gemara in Brachas says if you do that in davening, there's a sign that something's up. Anyway, fine, okay. I knew something was up. All right, no, not the end of the world. I was going by train, and Rabbi Herman, who had a wedding, so he needs to go from there, went by car, and he took Rabbi Grunfeld. Okay, I left with plenty of time. Anyone who knows me, I'm very organized. I left to be at a 4 o'clock meeting in town at 2:30 from Edgware. on the tube, no problem. It's not rush hour, no issues. Okay. I get there, I come out of Moorgate Station. I've got half an hour to go. It's a 9-minute walk, kind of ambling around, no problem. Yeah. Okay. It's 10 to 4, and I'm looking at my map, and I realized that I'm actually an hour away from where I should be. Yeah. Basically, Google Maps has taken me to a very similar sounding office. And really, I should have got off or got on to Tottenham Court Road station, and instead I've got off at Moorgate, right? So it's half an hour plus or an hour walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I call Rabbi Herman. I said, Rabbi Herman, I've absolutely blown it. I'm not going to make the meeting. And he was actually very calm about it. Yeah. The truth is, he was fine with Rabbi Grunfeld. I just was there to make the intro. So either way, right. So I thought, what a wally. I wasted an afternoon. Firstly, thank God they didn't come with me on the train. We'd all got lost. Yeah. Anyway, 10 minutes before that, the following incident happened. I got out of Moorgate Station, and obviously I know no one. I'm walking towards what I thought was where I needed to be with loads of time to spare. And I meet someone called Paul. Yeah. Who's Paul? So Paul, in his own words, had no reason to be there at that time. His wife, he works in Moorgate. His wife had called him home early to help something with the kids. So he was leaving office earlier, 3:45 or whatever, 20 to 4. And Paul, 4 weeks earlier, had signed up to do some learning with Seed, one-to-one learning as part of our program. And we couldn't really get hold of him fully. As Rabbi Cohen was trying, I was trying a bit. He couldn't, whatever. Anyway, we hadn't booked a time and a tutor and all that kind of stuff, right? We offered one-to-one learning. So I had a nice chat with Paul because I felt I had loads of time, right? And not only that, he asked where I was going, and I named the office. He said, "There's no office around here like that I've seen." I said, "Yeah, but you probably don't know the area well enough, Paul." Because I didn't know I was lost at that point. Anyway, at the end of the conversation, it was really nice. It was lovely to see him. I said, "Paul, just remember, we said we're going to start learning, right?" Yeah. So he said, yeah, you're right. I'll call Rabbi Cohen. We'll start learning. Yeah. So and then I found out afterwards I was in the wrong place. So what's fascinating is I genuinely believe that I was sent to Moorgate, bless me, a whole afternoon to bump into Paul, right? Who should never have been there. I'm telling you, I definitely shouldn't have been there. There's no way that if we both turned up in Moorgate at that time. Moorgate's also a big area. You can get where I could have got out of the station. I was actually looking for exit number 4 according to Google Maps, and there were only 3 of them. It could have done that any time of day. But I bumped into Paul, and there we are.
Yeah.
Nice, no?
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, people. I guess we'll end with that.